Welcome to the new edition of the ABBA League magazine. Only 2 rounds remain until the end of the regular season, as the 24th round was played. Of course, we had the reports from all the games, plus an interesting interview with Radnički's coach, Miroslav Muta Nikolic. And of course, in the end, the best 5 actions of the round. As always, we start with the news. Solnoki has forced the 3rd game in the quarterfinals of the Euro Challenge and has requested the game against Partizan be postponed. The game should have been played on Sunday, but there is a 99% chance the game won't be played at all, according to Josip Bilic, the league's director. Another success for Crvena Zvezda as they have progressed to the quarter-final of the Euro Cup, beating Lietuvos Rytas. Their next opponent in the last 8 is Budivelnyk of Ukraine, a team which had already played one ABBA League team, and that was Olympia. We start in Novo Mesto. Krka played host to Radnički and did so without their influential captain Edon Muric, who injured his shoulder in training. Zvonko Buljan was the first one to score, and at the other end it was Stefan Balmazovic, and that twice in a row, thus providing Radnički their only lead of the game. Krka scored the next 6 points, with Chris Booker putting them 5 points to the good. Still, Radnički was playing well, was behind only 2 points after the first quarter. Lapornik opened the second period well for Krka as he scored the first 5 points to give Krka a 7-point lead. In fact, by the time Zvonko Buljan scored, it meant Krka had scored the first 16 points of the second period, as it took the visitors almost 6 minutes to get going, courtesy of Marko Marinovic. That was quickly replied at the other end, as Siaka Klobuchar was having a terrific game, reaching 11 points, 12 assists, 6 rebounds and 4 steals. In the meantime, Radnički just couldn't score from distance. Stefan Balmazovic was the first one to do so, but only after 16 failed attempts. Then Sava Lesic finally managed to score. He was eventually Radnički's best scorer, but only with 11 points. But Krka, on the other hand, was hitting threes. Buljan's was Krka's 6th, and it brought the home team a 19-point lead, 40-23 after the first half. The home team scored in also the first 5 points of the period, with Chris Booker putting it to 45-23. Stefan Birčević restored some hope for the visitors when he closed the gap to 17 points, but that didn't last long, as Sani Bečirović was quick to put Krka back into the commanding lead of 23 points. At the same time, Chris Booker was having a game of the season. Here he is, dunking the ball, even though it isn't his strong point of the game. In fact, he contributed the last 8 points for Krka in the 3rd period, which ended with 66-37, an astronomical advantage for the home team before the last 10 minutes of the game. The home team was quick to set the lead of over 30 points at the beginning of the last quarter. Luka Lapornik also stepped up his game in the last period, scoring 3 times in a row and dunking nicely, which was a sort of an icing on the cake of Krka's performance. Of course, the home team then stepped up the gas a little bit, allowing the guests to score 9 consecutive points to at least dampen the defeat a little bit. 11 wins of the season for Krka, with a record 29 assists, while Radnički suffered one of the heaviest defeats of the season, scoring only 5 3-pointers from as many as 38 attempts. Now let's have a talk with Miroslav Nikolic. Miroslav Muta Nikolic was known to stir up the public with his controversial comments in the past. Recently, he was in the limelight again, having confessed he had helped Radnički with money out of his own pocket. And for that, he was recently questioned by the police nonetheless. We were playing in the Euro Cup, which was a hefty financial stroke for the club. Our accounts were blocked, and so I decided to help with the purchase of tickets and thus enable my players to play the game instead of thinking about money. Since I love basketball, and that's my sole motive. It's my life, it had given me everything, and I thought the time had come to give something back. And that's not the only case in which Nikolic was trying to help the club in a similar way. He was once even forced to sell his car. Yes, I've done this in the past when I was making my way as a coach. I wanted to bring in a player whom I admired and respected. I gave him my own money in order to get him to come, as the club wasn't stable at the time. The transfer deadline was near and the club paid me back later on. I reacted quickly and contributed my own money. That wasn't the only time I did it. The club from Kragujevac is now facing heavy times. Financial trouble is constant. Also, their best player and the only player receiving his salary had left, namely Muftau Jaru. The Serbian state also has no sympathy for a town of 200,000 inhabitants. According to Nikolic, far too much emphasis is on the capital, Belgrade. I think the players like me and are glad to be involved in my system. I have 9 players now under my tutorship who have never played in the ABA League before. It is hard to lead such a team, practically impossible to build a game with a team that changes every single year. Somehow I was able to do it, but there is constant trouble. Good players then leave as they have proved themselves on this level, and of course other clubs sign them.
Tako, trajemo I oni se afirmišu kroz ABA ligu, pa sljedeće godine neka idu negdje ako vrede da potpisuju neke ugovore važne po Evropi.
Popular Muta began his coaching career in Maribor, Slovenia, and is now in Kragujevac from 2009. In case of another promising project, he's willing to change the surroundings. He was once even linked with an Olympia job. I was doing and living well in Serbia and wasn't really thinking of moving abroad. But it's true, I was a candidate to coach Olympia. So what happened then? Well, I'm not sure. They decided to take someone else. Maybe it wasn't too good for them, as I'm a man who works really hard. I don't want to talk too much about myself. All I need is a stable budget and regular payments, and I can make things happen. Radnički was playing in the Euro Cup for the first time in its history and was able to get through to the second phase of the competition. Of course, there is much reserve in the ABA League, as Radnički is now only at 11th place. Of course, we are having ups and downs. Considering all the financial trouble, I'm partially satisfied. It's important to stay in the league and be amongst the best 3 in domestic championship in order to qualify for next year. And then we will again change the whole team and the story will repeat itself. Oh, we can only wish we will have succeeded again, as the ABA League would be a dull place without the influential and a very charismatic coach. Let's go to Skopje now, where MZT and Široki crossed swords. It was an important game for both, albeit for different reasons. The Macedonians are fighting for the Euro Cup tickets, while Široki is fighting the relegation battle with Zadar. They were the ones to score first through Ivan Buva, while at the other end Uroš Lučić was successful. The second Buva's basket was a nice piece of collaboration with Jonathan Jones, as Široki took a 4-point lead. Now that only lasted until Sead Čehović drove through and scored to make it 17-16. Josip Bilinovac set the result of the first period when it was 21-20. MZT led for 4 points as Kay Davies scored and was fouled in the process. The lead was 5 points when MZT managed to pull off 2 consecutive counterattacks. But then a little dip in concentration from the home team, which Široki readily took advantage of and took the lead by 31-30. Still, MZT was able to win the half by 43-39, with Aleksandar Cvetković being the last to score in it. The home team opened the third period well, and by the time Uroš Lučić scored, they had reached a lead of 50-39. Jonathan Jones was still playing well. He made sure MZT wouldn't get too far as he closed the gap to 5 points. Široki came to within a point of the hosts after 8-1 partial, but couldn't capitalize on it as MZT was in front by 5 points come the end of the third period, with Ivan Marinkovic setting the results to 59-54. He was also the first one to score in the last period as he combined well with Aleksandar Kostoski. But that was then followed by 5 consecutive points from Jamar Young, and the deficit was again cut to just 2 points. But MZT replied very well indeed. Marinkovic dunked 3 times to help his team to a 12-point lead, a little over 4 minutes before time. Jonathan Jones was having a good game, eventually reaching his personal best for the season with 25 points. He closed the gap to 8, 2.5 minutes before the end. Still, we could say the same for Ivan Marinkovic as he reached his personal best of the season with 20 points and dunking as many as 5 times in the last quarter to give MZT a double-digit lead. A minute and a half before time, the winner was finally decided as Stefan Sinovic scored for 3 to make it 82-69. The end result 82-71, a win which keeps MZT in contention for European places. The last place, Zadar was hosting the leader of the league, Crvena Zvezda, as the guests from Belgrade were aiming for the win which would guarantee them first place after the regular season and the right to organize the Final Four tournament. Still, Zadar was no walkover as the Dalmatians are locked in a heavy struggle for survival. Marko Ramljak opened the scoring for Zadar, and for Crvena Zvezda it was Boban Marjanovic. It was Zadar with an early lead as Filip Kraljevic put it to 6-2, but that didn't last long as the guests took their first lead of 9-8. They also won the first period after Jenkins's dunk when he made it 15-13. Then first points for his new club from Aleksandar Lipovi, and Zvezda was leading by 4 points. But soon after, the home team was able to equal the score through Kraljevic, who rounded up Zadar's counter-attack nicely. He was eventually Zadar's best scorer with 12 points. Zvezda was in the lead by 2 points when Nikola Rebic scored twice in a row, but that was followed by a first Zadar lead in the second period when Lovro Basic was twice successful for 3. All even at the half though, when Jenkins beat the buzzer with both teams scoring 30 points apiece. The visitors opened the third period well, scored the first 8 points and raced away to an 8-point lead. Zadar was keeping in touch, mainly through Josip Sovin, who was actually slightly injured and had to receive painkillers before the match. Marko Ramljak was the last one to score in the third period. From Zadar's counter-attack, he set the result of 46-39. The home team started the last quarter well, as Lovro Basic was responsible for the most attractive assist of the night when he found Filip Kraljevic, and the latter dunked to put Zadar just a point behind, and it seemed the home team were back in it. But then instead, Zvezda replied with 8 consecutive points and took the lead of 54-45 when Raško Kartic scored. The same player then effectively sealed the game 2 minutes before time when he put Zvezda 12 points in front. The end result was 67-53. Crvena Zvezda got their 20th win of the season, which now guarantees them first place after the regular season, while Zadar remains in last place. The only comfort for the Dalmatian is that Široki lost their game as well. Mega Vizura hosted Olimpija in Smederevo, having one more win to its name than the opposition. Ratko Varda was the first one to score and start a run of 8 consecutive points for the home team. The run was interrupted after 2.5 minutes when Gailius finally got the team from Ljubljana underway. And in fact, it was another 8-0 run, this time from the guests, rounded up by Sasu Salin. It was 14-10 for Mega when Nemanja Krstic scored. And then the lead of 8 points was restored when Vasilije Micic scored for 3. And the margin was the same come the end of the first quarter, when it was 29-21. Olimpia came within 2 points by the time Salin scored his third three-pointer. It was already his 17th point. After that, Olimpia equaled the score through Jaka Brodnik, but soon after that, Mega was again leading by 8 points when Novica Veličković scored at the other end. The end result of the first half of 47-43 was then set by Alen Omic. Soon in the third period, Olimpia took their first lead when Dino Muric scored from the counter-attack, and then the visitors were 6 points in front when Omic rounded up an 11-0 run for them. But that also didn't last long, as Mega Vizura retook the lead by a point when Nikola Jokic scored. Still, the Ljubljana outfit was in front by 3 points at the end of the third period when Omic scored 2 out of his 16 altogether. Olimpia was soon in front by 6 points when Gailiu scored twice in a row, but it was soon equalized again by Novica Veličković, both of those players reaching a double-double in the end. That didn't last long, as Dino Muric put the visitors 6 points to the good again. Less than 3 minutes before time, Alex Stevenson dunked to give Olimpia a 10-point lead for the first time in the game, rounding up a 12-1 partial. He was also the one confirming Olimpia's win at the beginning of the last minute. It was 85-80 in the end, with Olimpia recording as many as 17 offensive rebounds. Second place Cedevita hosted fourth place Budućnost in Zagreb. The home team needed one more win to confirm their participation in the Final Four tournament, while Budućnost is trying to get there and was locked in a battle with Partizan in Cibona for the remaining 2 tickets. Nolan Smith opened the scoring, while for the visitors Vladimir Mihalovic did so with a 3. Cedevita was in front by 8 points when Miro Bilan scored twice in a row. When Nolan Smith did the same, the home team got away to a 21-9 lead after a 9-0 partial. Budućnost then closed the gap to 6 points when Aleksa Popovic scored for 3, but was trailing by 9 at the end of the first quarter. At the start of the second one, Cedevita matched its highest lead of 12 points when Alan Ray scored for the first time in the game. Then a lead of 14 points was secured by Yusuf Nurkic, and soon after that the home team opened a 16-point lead. When Nolan Smith scored his second three-pointer, it was his 17th point already. The gap was 10 points by the time Nikola Ivanovic scored twice in a row, but that was followed by 6 consecutive points from Yusuf Nurkic, who made it 47-33. Still, Budućnost got their act together towards the end of the half, as Aleksa Popovic was resourceful enough in the last second to put his team 7 points behind. When Suat Šehović scored at the beginning of the second half, the guests had closed the gap to just 5 points after an 8-0 partial. Cedevita then replied through Alan Ray to open up a 9-point lead again, but Budućnost was again better in the finish of the period, as it was behind for just 4 points after 30 minutes of play. Aleksandar Čapin scored twice in a row and Budućnost equaled the score to 60, and in the next offense Bojan Subotić rounded up a 12-1 run to give Budućnost their first lead. Soon the visitors were in front by 4 after 2 consecutive three-pointers, and then less than 3 minutes before time Budućnost led for the last time in the game, as Nikola Ivanovic scored for the last time for them. In fact, Budućnost only scored 3 points in the last 5 minutes, which ultimately was their undoing, as Cedevita was effective from the free throw line to confirm not only their win over Budućnost but also the placement to the Final Four tournament. Igokea only still nurtured theoretical hopes of reaching the Final Four tournament, but was still in the fight for European places, and as such was hosting Cibona, who was of course desperately trying to win to gain some advantage over the opposition in the battle for the F4 places. Milan Dozic was the first one to score, while for the visitors it was Jarrell Blasingame with the 3. Cibona was soon leading by 7 points as Ivan Siriščević scored for 3. When Darko Planinic scored, Cibona was in front by 8 points. Duško Bunic was the last one to score in the first period, which ended with 24-18 for Cibona. The visitors were leading by 9 points when Marko Jagodic Kurija corrected Kus's shot, and soon after the advantage was 11 points when Dario Šarić scored the first time from open play. But then a turnaround. Branko Jorovic scored 3 times in a row, by that time reaching 16 points, 25 in the end for him, and the home team equaled the score to 31. Siniša Štemberger was the last one to score, setting the result of 34-31 and rounding up a 14-0 run for Igokea, while Cibona was unable to score for the whole of 6 minutes. At the beginning of the second half, Teddy Gibson scored to give Igokea a 6-point lead, after which Cibona succeeded to arrest a run of 16 consecutive points for Igokea when Blasingame scored for 3. After that wake-up call, Cibona was able to again take the lead when Marko Jagodic Kurija put the visitors 2 points in front. Soon after, Cibona opened up an 11-point lead when Darko Planinic scored his 14th point and rounded up a 9-0 partial for the guests. It was 55-47 at the end of the third quarter when Boris Bakic scored from distance. Soon after, Cibona matched its highest lead of 11 points when Blasingame drove through twice in a row. He was also assisting well, this time for Jagodic Kurija, who brought Cibona a 13-point lead less than 4 minutes before time. A minute later, the same player was responsible. Cibona took the lead of 15 points, that after another good run of 8-0. A minute and a half before the end, Teddy Gibson was finally able to score with his 7th point. He was the second best scorer for Igokea, and that was the home team's only second basket in 8.5 minutes of play in the last period. And that, of course, was not enough to win, and Cibona was happy to win the game with 67-55. So Krka, with the highest win of the round of Radnički, MZT got the better of Široki in the end. No problems for Crvena Zvezda, Olimpija and Cedevita, and a first ever win for Cibona in Laktaši. The game between Partizan and Solnoki is postponed. Crvena Zvezda is now guaranteed first place after the regular season and has now gained the right to organize the Final Four tournament. Cedevita also gets there for the first time, while the fight for the remaining tickets is still on, with Cibona now best placed to get there as Partizan falls to 5th place due to the postponed game with Solnok. No change in the fight for relegation, with Zadar and Široki still having the same win-to-loss ratio. We have 2 players sharing that MVP honor in the 24th round, Jonathan Jones and Branko Jorovic, both reaching a playing index of 31. Jones had 25 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists and 1 steal in the 35 minutes he played in the game against MZT. Branko Jorovic had the same amount of points with 7 rebounds, 1 assist and 3 steals in the 27 minutes he played in a game against Cibona. Unfortunately, both of those players had lost their respective games. And now to our top 5 choice of actions of the round. At number 5, we have this alley-oop from Široki, from Jonathan Jones to Ivan Buva. At number 4, another alley-oop, this time through Kostovski and Marinkovic. At number 3, a steal from Jaka Klobuchar, and then a nice pass to Luka Lapornik, who dunked very nicely indeed. At number 2, this is the last second of the first half between Cedevita and Budućnost, courtesy of Aleksa Popovic. Just about to reach that pass in time to get new points for Budućnost. And at number 1, this is the great assist from Lovre Basic, to Filip Kraljevic, who then in turn dunked. A very nice action, and this is the best action of the week for us. This is the fixtures. We start our penultimate round of the regular season on Saturday in Hungary. 2 more games to follow on that day, while on Sunday there is a Slovenian derby in Ljubljana. 2 very important games on Monday, as Široki has it all to do against Cibona, and in the end, the all-important duel between 2 F4 protagonists as Budućnost host Partizan in Podgorica. And that's all for today. Join us again next time. Bye-bye.